Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Bright Funders Talk at Temy. Temy is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. And each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we're joined by a remarkable guest, Elliot Boucher, who is the co-founder at Edusign. Hello, Elliot. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Thank you very much. You're always welcome. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day. We know you're very busy. For those who don't know you or your company, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the company that you work at?
Sure. So I'm the co-founder of Edusign, which is solving a very simple problem at the beginning. So when you go to a course, whether it's in an enterprise context or maybe in higher education, very often you need to take attendance. So maybe you need to sign a piece of paper, or maybe you need to, sometimes already it's digitized, by the way, maybe you need to scan a QR code or something. So we first digitized all the attendance tracking system for schools. So we integrate with a lot of software. We have a lot of automations around that. And the goal is to provide the best attendance tracking system you can to save a lot of time, because it's a very simple task. But once you do it for 5,000 students, it takes a bit of time for the administrators to manage that. So we try to automate as much as we can. And since then, we developed a lot of other features around administrative stuff for schools and for students. So we have surveys, e-signatures, and a mobile app that can be white labeled so that you have your app as the school, and you can integrate with a lot of features around communication and a few things like that. So the idea is to have one super app that will save you a lot of time, especially in higher education. And we are doing approximately 5 million ARR. I'm sure you're happy to have some numbers, but tell me if I'm wrong. We have 50 employees that are fully remote around Europe. Most of our clients are in France, but we do have a few clients in Europe and in South America as well. And that's about it.
How did you actually stumble into this? Was it something like you had a long-term goal and you thought, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur? Or was it something that you happened upon and just kind of thought, oh, let's try it and see what happens?
Good question. So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had a few e-commerce stuff. I had some SEO, like small internet things that you want to try, a few courses. But Edusign was my first SaaS. So I was lucky to find a co-founder to build an actual product, and we stumble onto the problem ourselves. So we were having a course and we actually lost the piece of paper twice. Like that's not possible in 2020 to have that. And so we wanted to automate that process. And we realized that we thought at the beginning that was a very, very small problem. We thought that maybe luckily we would do 2K per month or something doing that. But no, apparently it's a way bigger problem. And since then, we could expand elsewhere. So that's how we started.
What was the early version at Edusign? What did it look like when you first started, and how did the people respond to it?
Yeah, so the first version wasn't the software, by the way. I think it's quite important to say that we sold to our customers without having a product first. So we built a website and we tried to really focus on the value proposition. So the first step wasn't actually building the product. It was to see what was in the market and try to take an opposite side, basically. So you already had a few software that were digitizing attendance, but it was quite boring, quite old. And so we took like a yellowish stance, and we wanted to be startup-y. So we knew that we would lose some enterprise deals, and we were fine with that. So I think, being quite clear on where you stand at the beginning has some value. Right now, it's slightly different. It has evolved over time. But to answer your question, technically speaking, the first version was really focused on the core value as much as we could. So we didn't have any login. We didn't have any, to give you an idea, when someone wanted to add data on our software, we didn't have an API. We didn't have Excel import files. So we asked them to send us via email the Excel file that we transformed ourselves and put in the database manually. So completely waste of time, not scalable at all. So, doing things that don't scale at the beginning, for sure. So we first focus on the QR code, and we actually invented something that is used when it comes to attendance pretty much all around the world right now, which is a QR code that changes every 5 seconds and that student can scan using their phone. And from that, we developed a few other ways to track attendance, and everything is synchronized. And then, All the rest is pretty easy, I would say. Obviously, it's not easy, but I think that figuring out really the core value was what was important at the time.
Have there been any requested features, especially from educators or administrators? And what's your view on them? I mean, some people can be quite unreasonable and some people become very pragmatic. And how do you differentiate between things that you think are realistic and things that are more like a dream or a wish list?
Actually, to do that, we don't focus so much on the solution. So what I like to tell my salespeople is, don't give me solution, give me problems to solve. And we really don't focus on that at all. And we pretty much forget all about it. So we hear the clients because, people to give us more information, you need to make them feel heard. So you need to really listen carefully and not bring a solution, by the way. So we try to ask them, okay, but what do you do today? How much time does it take? Who's doing that? And why? Why are you doing this? And because when you take attendance, for example, you might think that the why is, well, I need to digitize the paper. That's not a why. Like, why do you need a piece of paper in the first place? Because you have some funding. Okay, but why? Because, there are some rules, et cetera, that you need to follow. And so it becomes something that is not about digitization, but more about legal stuff, for example. And you have some mandatory things that you need to wrap around. So we try to focus on problems that are either big enough to focus on. So it might be one big thing that happens maybe once a year, but it needs to be really big then, or something that is quite small, but happens every day. I tend to prefer those ones. And hopefully you stumble into a few of them and you try to solve them.
What has the feedback been like from teachers and trainers and students?
I think, interestingly, right away, most people were quite engaged with the product, quite happy to give it a try. I think, obviously, some students dislike it. And some teachers, when you are 55 years old, you don't really want a new tool. Yeah, they are not loving the product right away. But we really try to focus on giving a great customer experience when it comes to students and teachers. We really, really thought a lot about that while building the product, and we refused ourselves from adding a lot of features for them, by the way. When it comes to the administrator, we add a lot of things. The platform is quite heavy, not complex, but there are many things. When it comes to teachers and students, we know that we can add a lot of things, but we don't, because we want to keep it very, very simple. So I think it helped to have a good adoption of the product. But for sure, in education, there is some difficulty because there were, I think, burned at some point with a product that did not really work, and the administrator imposing something on them because they don't really have a choice, most of the time, and so they don't really like that. So you need to work on that, but hopefully today it works. So.
And how do you handle resistance from institutions themselves as opposed to teachers? Because I'm sure you will have the odd student or teacher who doesn't want to adapt to a new way. But if it's the institutions particularly paper-based, how do you kind of overcome that resistance?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think COVID helped us a lot about that. Before that, for sure, we had to have a lot of conversation about the why. Why do you need that? But I think right now we have a very clear problem and a must-have product, I would say. And the question is not so much about should I, but the price and the how, and maybe the teachers actually. So the change management is more important than why should I digitize the paper. So it's more about change management, and we need to convince the schools that it's going to be easy to integrate. So adoption, it needs to be quite easy on all sides, whether it's technical or teachers or students. And so we try to focus on that with a lot of communication. And obviously, the more references you have, the easier it gets. So today, it's way easier than it was at the beginning, for sure.
I can imagine. And when you first started the company, did you have an idea of what the problems would be? And how has that actually changed from what the problems actually were?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, this is the problem was quite clear when it comes to what you see. You have a piece of paper, you want to digitize it, but the why is going to be slightly different. And we thought that the problem was quite small. And so, for example, we thought that we could have a standalone platform that would work with itself, and you would add the data manually, and that would be it. But no, if it works like that, you can address 10% of the market. You need to integrate with a lot of software. And so half of our time has been spent integrating other software, for example. So this was an interesting change. And so then you need to decide if you want to copy some features from, or improve some features from other software, or integrate with them. So I think the strategy here is quite interesting as well. And you need to ask the right question. And I'm not sure we have all the right answers, but so far so good, I would say.
So I think in France, you've actually gained a very strong traction. You mentioned also that you have a little bit of a market in South America. What are your plans for international expansion? Is that something that you're considering going along strong with, or is it still in the early stages?
It's still in the early stages, and at the beginning we focused on attendance. And right now we acquired a company called AppScore, which was doing white label mobile app for higher education, and we try to pivot toward that. We want to be the best mobile app in the world, if it comes to that, to solve all kind of problems around higher education for students. And we have this unfair advantage because we start with attendance, which is taken by everyone in the school. It's interesting for the teachers, it's interesting for the students, and it's mandatory for everyone every day. So we start there and we can expand with a few other features. So our goal is to first end up with a very good platform that has more features than we have today. And we are right now delivering that in France, and hopefully it will work internationally in the future. So in the next few years, you might see Edusign, but probably under another brand, under the school brand, whereas today most of our customers use the Edusign app. So we want them to use their own school app.
So you mentioned going beyond attendance there. Are you talking about things like performance tracking or engagement analytics, that kind of thing?
Oh, even further than that, because engagement tracking or statistics, it's all around attendance. We want to go way further. We have communication capabilities. So, for example, right now students they are not so much following the emails. They have too many, and so they want to be on their phone. So we want to be the hub where they have everything. So they already have their timetable, their attendance, some documents, surveys. And so once you have that, it's quite easy to add a few other things like maybe the payments, maybe the financial aids, maybe mentors, whatever it can be. We have a lot of things that can be added to the app. And way we are doing to do that is we are going to, and we actually are building a lot of small features or bigger features, but features that are core to the product. So for example, a campus map or a knowledge base is going to be right away available in your product if you want it in a few clicks. But if you have something else that you want to integrate with Edusign, you can have an app marketplace. So right now, the idea is to let any developer, so it could be a school with a developer or a partner. And so we have big EdTech companies that integrate with Edusign to improve our app and gain more customers on their side, because we are quite don't know if famous is a good word in France, but we do have like 25% of the higher education market, for example, in France. So it's good for them to integrate with us. So hopefully we will have an ecosystem of partners and our own features that we can sell to become the real go-to platform for higher education.
You mentioned earlier about innovation, how you're trying to upgrade and change some of the services that you offer. Are there any kind of trends in the EdTech field that excite you right now or have given you pause for thought?
I think there are two. The first one is quite obvious. It's AI. And I think it's interesting to see how they approach that in education, because as in many industries, they want to add AIs, and students are the first one to use AI, actually, if you think about it. They use it pretty much every day. It's the population that use it the most. And at the same time, institutions don't really want them to use it as they use it right now. So it's like a love and hate story where they want you to use AI, but not really that way. So it's interesting to see that you have this balance to have, and at the same time you have all the security, and especially in Europe, the GDPR stuff that you need to handle. So we need to make sure that we can provide a platform that use AI in a responsible manner. And I think it's going to arrive, but takes a little bit more time than in other industries where we see that AI is already being adopted. So it will come, but it takes a bit of time. But it is definitely exciting. So, for example, we just launched a new features where justification of absence is today you have a document that you send by emails maybe, and you have someone that checks if it's good or not, and then log into another platform to add it, etc., etc. Right now, AI is going to tell you if it's valid or not, where the document should go, how to link to the right thing, and do everything automatically if you want in a click. So we can save a lot of time using that side. So that would be the first thing. And the second one would be synchronizing everything. I think that especially in your education, they used to have, a lot of schools used to have one big platform where they try to put everything at once, but with just one provider. And the problem is that one provider can't do everything. So they end up either with a lot of small platforms that aren't connected, or with a big monolith that can't do everything and is not flexible enough. And I think the future lies in between, with something that is core and that is going to be integrated well with other small software. So I think that's quite exciting, because web and mobile are going to be synchronized in real time, and what wasn't possible 10 years ago is becoming possible. And obviously with AI, we can develop a few things faster as well, so we can provide more personalized experiences. I think, this is exciting.
So Elliot, you mentioned GDPR in your first answer, so that's my opportunity to jump in there now. So what measures have you and your company taken to ensure the security of personal data and attendance records for students?
Well, first of all, we worked with the CNIL, which is the national French agency around GDPR, to make sure that we were having the right measures around. But beside that, you have a lot of small security stuff that you need to have. We use Venta to monitor all the ISO 27001 stuff, like the security stuff, and we invest a lot in transparency with our clients. And I think transparency, by the way, is core of the problem. I think the schools don't really understand what they are talking about most of the time. They're like, oh, AWS, it's Amazon, it's American, it's evil. Okay, but we are having this meeting on Microsoft Teams, right? So what's going on here? What's the thing? And so you need to explain it clearly to them, and being very transparent, and obviously do the right things. Like, we don't sell any data to partners. We don't. We make sure that our employees are trained well enough. We make sure that everything is taken into consideration when we build a product and not 5 months later. So we try to keep everything up to date and be very transparent. I think it's not hard to do. It takes just a bit more time than probably it should have. That's it.
It's always the way, isn't it? Things start off and you think they're going to be simple, but as you analyze it, it tends to unravel quite a lot, doesn't it? If you're looking at the future, are there any things that you're thinking about for your company that you maybe like to tease about, or any directions that you think are exciting that you'd like to share with us?
I think we summarized it pretty much. I think it's going to be very exciting if you want to have a white label app for your school. I think it's going to be much more accessible than in the past. It used to cost thousands of euros to get something on the App Store. Right now, it's going to take maybe a few hundreds and be available with a lot more features. So I think, this is quite exciting, not just in France, but all around the world, and especially in countries where they have a little bit less resources, because if you go in the US, obviously they already have a lot of systems available and they can take the best. But I think in Mexico, for example, it might not be always the case. And I think it's quite exciting to see that they jump from basically having nothing to having the best.
If you look at your career and when you first got this company started, how important was networking? I know that you're a co-founder. Was it something that you had to go out and try and find the right people to draw to you as a talent base, or was it something that you kind of were lucky enough just to come across?
It depends what you describe by networking. If we talk about clients, I had to go out a lot and did a lot of outbound friends, family, and used every link that I could find to find some client. But in education, it's quite easy to do because everyone has been to a school pretty much. So you can always find someone that can connect you to someone. So I think it's easier in my field than in others. If you speak about other experts or, startuppers or things like that, actually, I think that I didn't network at all, and I still don't so much. I think you can learn pretty much anything online, and you have all these founders doing podcasts and doing writing books and doing stuff like that. So you can learn a lot just doing that, and focus on the customer again is a key in my opinion.
So how do you and your co-founders divide responsibilities and stay aligned as the company grows?
So right now, my co-founder is focused on the sales side and making sure that our clients are very happy and that they can use the product in the right way, and he's going to pitch the vision to them as well. And I'm handling the rest, and I think that's pretty clear. I'm making sure that we have the right product and that we are maybe a little bit ahead of the curve when it comes to the vision and to the investment, because the tricky part is always, should I invest in something that they ask me today for, or should I invest in the future? I think we are having the right mix. So that's how we divide the responsibilities. But I think the core thing is, like in any relationship, is just communicate when something is wrong. Don't wait for it. And I think that's part of how we work. But it's not always shiny, and obviously it's not always perfectly described in terms of responsibilities. But we try to make the best of it.
Do you like to wear a lot of hats? Are you one of those? Because I know some entrepreneurs, they do like to have their fingers in lots of pies, but other people like to be more focused. What is your preference?
I like to have multiple hats. Yes, definitely. I think I like to say I try to fire myself from my previous role every 6 months, basically. I like this idea. It's not always possible on every topic, but I try to follow that. I think it's quite interesting. But that being said, I think as the company grows, further from the product you are, I think the further... the more you want to come back to that at some point, because I want to go faster on that, but you need to focus maybe on more broad things. Yeah, that's my answer.
What was the biggest thing that surprised you most about working in this industry, particularly the education industry?
Something maybe that a lot of people know, but I didn't, was that I thought that in education, it was for the students. I thought that education was pretty much an association, for not for profit, basically. I learned that no, actually, it's very much for profit for many people, and it's businesses most of the time. Not always, obviously. Public universities aren't like that. But as it turns out, public universities aren't managed that well. So I think you have this, this hate and love problem where you have this for-profit that are exercising a little bit too much of the power they have over students sometimes and not thinking enough about the students. At the same time, the non-profit aren't managed well enough. So I don't know what's the perfect solution, but that was surprising to me to see that.
And let's say a school administrator is watching this right now, and they still rely on pen and paper. What would your advice be to them? How would you sell it to them?
I think if you're hesitating, just start small and start with a pilot and just trust the product, see how it works and see the time saved. And basically what we did and we still do is when someone is hesitating, because actually that's maybe the answer for the earlier question is how we actually do it, is we just say, okay, don't believe us, believe the product, believe the feedback that you'll get. And we ask them to ask the worst teachers and the best teachers. And we literally say, pick the one that will dislike the product. And if he likes it, it's a done deal. And most of the time, it's okay. So that's how we do it. And I think it works quite well. Not always, obviously. It's a bet, but if your product is good, it's a good strategy, I think.
Well, you can't please all the people all of the time, right? So I think that's one of the things in business we learn. The final question is more on other entrepreneurs. Let's say some young person is watching this now and they want to jump into entrepreneurship. What would your advice be to them?
I think I see a lot of advice that can be taken a little bit too literally, just do it. But you need to have the right idea. You need to know what to focus on. You need to have some skills. So I think my advice would be just talk with as many users as you can, and not just 10 or 20. In the first year, I talk with more than 1,000 potential users. You should do that. Once you do that, it's way easier to define a very clear problem. You'll have the contacts you need to sell it to them. You'll have everything you need to get started. So you don't need the platform. You don't need any technical things. You just need to have a good problem to solve, and the rest will follow. So just focus on the user, focus on the problem is my advice.
Amazing. Fantastic advice. Elliot, thank you so much again for talking with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you very much.
That was Elliot Boucher, co-founder at Edusign.